I've been living in Zimbabwe now for 6 years. I first came out here in June 2016. I was working for a travel company in the UK, and they sent myself and some colleagues out to take a look at some of the lodges, experience some of the safari products we were selling, so that we could better inform our clients back in the UK of the holiday that they'd be getting if they'd booked it with us. On the third night in Zimbabwe, we were staying at a lodge just outside of Victoria Falls, and there I met a beautiful woman, fell head over heels madly in love. We exchanged details and we just kept talking even while I was in the UK. I racked up some pretty serious phone bills. I then came for a personal holiday out here in September 2016. 9 days, and I stayed at that same lodge with Carrie and her family. And it was during that time that I fell in love with Zimbabwe as a country, to the point that on October 28th, 2016, I arrived at Victoria Falls Airport with 2 suitcases. My entire life condensed into those 2 suitcases, threw caution to the wind and decided, no, this is what I want for myself. I want to be with this woman and I want to live in this astonishing place. And 6 years later, here we are. Carrie and I were married on November 4th, 2016. Bit of a whirlwind romance, but I wouldn't change it for the world. It has been just such a spectacular time. So today, I've grabbed my camera, I've walked out here to Hillside Dam's Conservancy, set up so that I can talk to you all about my 5 favourite things about living in Zimbabwe. Now, this isn't a ranking, it's just 5 points that I want to talk about what makes this country so special to me. Hopefully, you'll enjoy this. And if you do, please take that second just to hit like on this video and consider subscribing if you haven't already for more about my life out here in this incredible country. Otherwise, let's jump right in. The first point to talk about is definitely the setting itself, the wilderness, the scenery, the landscape. This country is exceptionally beautiful, and beyond that, Zimbabwe just has this astonishing variety to it as well. When I first came out here in June 2016, we visited Victoria Falls and Hwange National Park. That's very similar terrain, it's all sub-desert scrubland. Obviously, Victoria Falls also has the Victoria Falls, the Mosi Otonya, the smoke that thunders, the longest curtain of falling water in the world, and it is an astonishing sight that even 6 years of living here and having walked that site maybe 20-30 times still blows me away every time I do so. It is incredible, and the wildlife and the versatility around there is just something spectacular. As you come into Hwange National Park, again, it's very similar. The northern side is more Mopani forests and scrubland, and as you come further south through the park, it opens up into these beautiful savanna-like sandy plains, like the Ngamo Plains. If you take a photo of northern Hwange and then to the south of the park, you might even think they're completely different countries, let alone the same national park. As you come further east from Hwange, here to Bulawayo, you start to get these big rocks behind us, these big slabs of granite just jutting out of the earth. And Matopus National Park, okay, it may not have the same wildlife as Hwange or Manapools or anywhere else, but the rocks, the lichens, it's such an alien landscape by contrast. This is, as I said, Hillside Dam's Conservancy. We're not at Matopus, I've camped out there, and even then, the difference between here and there, insane. Travel further to the south and east, and you hit Gonarajo, and again, another national park that has this beautiful, majestic river carving through it, the mighty Chilojo Cliffs. Up to the north of the country, you've got Manapools, another national park that is big swampland-like forest, with right on the edge of the Zambezi River. The Zambezi River itself is incredible. If you're into fishing, it has tigerfish, it's got vundu, it's got bream, it's got barbel. I'm not a fisherman, and I love the river. It's just such a beautiful and chill place to be. And of course, if you come up the river, you hit Lake Kariba. Now, if you've ever seen Lake Kariba, that place is ethereal. It is the largest man-made lake on the planet. It's like 140 kilometers long, 140 miles long, I can never remember which of those, and it's like 22 miles long at its thickest point. It is as wide as the English Channel between Dover and Calais, and it's a lake. That just blows my mind. And if you look at it, you'll just see these skeletal trees sticking out of the water, just poking like gnarled fingers, remnants of the valley before it was flooded when the Kariba Dam was built. That's not even to then mention the Eastern Highlands. Head right out to the east of Zimbabwe, right onto the Mozambique border, and you've got an area that looks almost like Scotland. You've got mountains and heather and mists and waterfalls and ponds with salmon in them, for crying out loud. And this is all in one country. Zimbabwe is just astonishing, and this is the kind of thing I need to get more footage of, and I'm looking forward to on this channel, visiting visiting these places, taking my setup with me, and getting to show you all as well, just to show you how incredibly beautiful this country can be. This is the kind of beauty that just seeps into you and doesn't let go. And that brings us quite nicely to my second point: wildlife and conservation. We can't talk about the landscape without talking about the critters that live in it. Zimbabwe is just incredible for that too, and not just for the variety and the sheer spectacle of that wildlife. Of course, there are places elsewhere in the world where you can see African elephant, zebra, giraffe, lion, leopard, and much like the landscape, it varies so dramatically across the country. Now, here in Bulawayo, we don't really worry too much about the wildlife. Certainly here at Hillside Dams, when I'm walking around, I keep my eyes down, looking left and right, in case I step on a puff adder or in case a cobra comes out of the grass. These are very real risks here, and something that I never had to think about before in the UK. That said, when you start going further out, you start to get more concerns. When I was living in Victoria Falls with Carrie, we would fall asleep at night listening to hyena woo-yipping in the distance, and it was the most beautiful sound ever. There is nothing quite like just hearing that haunting sound off into the distance to lull you to sleep, because we lived right on the edge of town, which in itself is right on the edge of a wilderness. There were mornings when we would wake up and there were lion prints outside our driveway. Of course, we have a wall and an electric gate on that house, but to step outside and just see a lion print in the sand of the road out the front of your own house is just insane. There was a time once when I was trying to drive to the shops late one evening, and there was a herd of buffalo between my front gate and our local 7-Eleven, despite the fact that that 7-Eleven was literally a 3-minute walk away. You would still take a car at night, and very glad I did, because the last thing you want to do is walk onto a herd of buffalo. There was one morning that Carrie and I were woken up to an almighty crashing noise, wondered what the hell had gone on, opened up our front door, and there is a bull elephant in our garden ripping fruit off our tree. It has taken the gate clean off its hinges. I'm terrified at this point. I'm just frozen thinking, what the hell do you do to get an elephant out of your garden? But Carrie, she just comes running out the front, makes herself as big as possible and starts waving a jacket around, screams at this elephant, and it just backs away and walks off out the garden and down the road. Where else can you get that? Zimbabwe is more than just the wildlife it has, it's also the way it cares for its wildlife. Now, obviously, every African country cares for its wildlife to a certain extent. If you go on a safari to Botswana or South Africa to Kruger National Park, you're going to be told the same thing, and there are all these conservation efforts. I feel here that the people are just more connected to those animals, to the point that if you go into the local Ndebele culture, the surnames are totemic. They are representative of various animals. Ngube is a baboon. Ndlovu is an elephant. Ingwenya is a crocodile. Our old gardener in Victoria Falls was Ronnie Ingwenya. Yesterday I took Carrie to the dentist, and the dentist was a Dr. Nyoni, Dr. Bird, quite literally named after the wildlife in the area. These people aren't just surrounded by wildlife, they are connected to it. I think the next one's a bit of a cliche for anyone doing sort of video logs, but it kind of has to be said here in Zimbabwe. Food. Food is just incredible. Like, genuinely, the food has no right being as good as it is. Like, okay, I've been to gourmet restaurants in the UK, I have travelled the world, and I've eaten in some truly spectacular places. One particular ramen joint in Tokyo springs to mind and will just never leave my taste buds alone. But here in Zimbabwe, there's just something about the food without it being flashy. Most of the traditional dishes are essentially stews, often cooked with sadza, which is kind of a polenta-like mealy meal mix that's made into a very thick, stodgy porridge, so thick you can literally tear chunks off it and use it almost like a stiff bread to mop up soup or stews. The fact that the meat is just so pure. When I first lived in Victoria Falls and my parents used to come out to visit, one of the things they would always say is that the steaks are truly spectacular. And that's coming from people who live in the UK, for crying out loud. Roast beef here is just on another level. And maybe that's to do with how the wildlife's brought up, maybe it's to do with the land that they're grazed on, I don't know, but the food is just incredible. If you've never had biltong, I'm not a huge meat eater, I could probably go vegetarian at a push, but just biltong, it is like beef or other meats, kind of like a beef jerky, it's dried, it's cured. You've got boerewors, which is like it's a long, beefy, porky sausage, and the flavour in that is just incredible. I've gone at length in previous videos talking about my mother-in-law's chamalia and tomato and onion mix. Chamalia is kind of like kale or cabbage or perhaps even rape mixed in with then tomato and onion into this deliciously juicy relish that you just mop up with salsa and have your meat with it. There's just so much good food, and street food here is incredible as well. Our local supermarket or hypermarket on the edge of town often has a braai outside it. A braai is, I suppose you could call it a barbecue, although I'm gonna get some flack for calling it like a barbecue. Anyone in Southern Africa, if you use the word barbecue, run. Just run. Don't do it. It's braai, not barbecue, braai. And it's so good. It's so good, especially if it's done with mapani wood. The smoke that comes off that just gives such a beautiful flavor to that meat. My father-in-law often braais up a full roast chicken, and it is just, well, it's not roast chicken really, is it? And it's so juicy, and that smoky flavor to it. It's beyond compare. And braai culture in general is just such a cool thing out here. Like, I've been invited to barbecues in the UK. It's kind of a sit in your garden kind of thing. Out here, a braai is a community event. It's, hey guys, I'm throwing a braai on Friday night, and everyone just congregates. Everyone brings their own beer, everyone brings their own meat, you throw it on, someone's braaiing it up, and just good times had by all. Oh, you just don't get that anywhere else. This next one's a bit more ephemeral. It's a bit more abstract. Resourcefulness. Zimbabwe as a country, I think it's polite to say, has been dealt a rough hand throughout recent history. And obviously as a Brit, that's something that I do have to contend with. I have to accept that my home country and now the country I live in have a very rocky history. There's a lot of controversy there that I'm not going to spend time on with this video. What I want to say is that despite the rough hand that Zimbabwe has had dealt to it, or perhaps because of, Zimbabwean resourcefulness is just incredible. Like, I've joked before that there are cars on the road that just shouldn't be. When people have said to me, what's it like living in Africa, if you can sum it up in as fewer words as possible, I'd say that living in Zimbabwe is a surreal experience, because things that should work, like government agencies, your electricity and utilities, often don't. And things that shouldn't work, like 60-year-old cars that are held together with duct tape, good wishes, do. And that's it in a nutshell here. Because we don't have the capability to import stuff easily, and we don't have much stuff built here locally, it can be very hard to replace something. So what we have is this real sort of repair-it-yourself culture, to the point that our pool table at the house is beginning to give out, and so screw it, we'll just make new legs. It's a little bit wonky on the top where it was left out in the rain, we'll just plane it down, or heck, just replace the entire top. Zimbabweans kind of live by that triggers broom mentality. By that I mean, I've had the same broom my entire life. I've only changed the head 5 times and the handle 8 times. Is it the same broom? Yeah, we're getting into Ship of Theseus territory here, but that's the Zimbabwean mentality. Why would I go out and buy something new when I can just fix or improve what I currently have? And so you've got people driving cars that were in their prime in the 70s, and they've just done them up repeatedly. New level over new level over new level, adding new features, replacing old ones when something breaks, replacing it, and often replacing it in these really creative and innovative ways. It's not usually just a case of run to the shop and grab the part. It's often a case of how can I do what I need to do with what I have available. Just that creativity to take something, and rather than saying, right, it's broken, time for me to get a new one. No. It's broken. How can we fix it? What parts do I need? And it does genuinely surprise me, some of the things that Carrie has managed to create out of what I would consider almost raw materials. Skills that you just don't necessarily have in places like the UK. We grow up with that replacement mentality. If something breaks, we can just go to the shop and buy a new one. But it's just such a thing that is bred into the Zimbabwean people, that if something goes down, make a plan. If it's broken, we'll find a way to fix it. And of course, I couldn't talk about Zimbabwe without mentioning the people. This, if I were doing a ranking, this is going to be that number 1. Okay, yeah, sure, the wildlife, the wilderness, the food, that resourcefulness, these are all incredible traits to what is an astonishingly fantastical country. But what makes it truly unique and truly special is the people. The people are the heart of Zimbabwe, whether they are white, whether they are black, no matter who they are just an incredible nation of people. I have never gone anywhere in the world that has the same feeling as walking through Zimbabwe. Everyone is constantly smiling. You'll just have people greet you as you walk down the street, start up a conversation while you're in the line at a shop. It is ridiculously welcoming and friendly, whether you are a foreigner, whether you are a native. It doesn't matter. You are a human here. They have a word for this, Ubuntu. I'm not sure if that's a Zimbabwean word or sort of a more generic African word. The lingo does kind of meld a lot in this country as well. The concept of Ubuntu is, I am good because you are good. It's this real familial way of looking at it. And as a brilliant example of this, go take a look at what it's like as a Brit living in Zimbabwe video I put out recently. The comments on that, I had people I've never met in my life before refer to me as their son-in-law or their brother, because that's how a Zimbabwean thinks. You are here, you are my family, and I will be better if you are better. And that is such an incredible way of thinking. It's a humbling way of thinking, and it required me to rewire my brain completely when I first moved out here. I'm quite an introverted person. Ignore the fact that I do all of this. I don't like outgoing social situations. They don't care in Zimbabwe. You're introverted. That's fine. We'll give you your space, but we love you. And when you do come out, everyone is just there. And I mean everyone. I have never had problems in any of the bars we've been to. Everyone's friendly. You can just go up to someone and challenge them to a game of pool or snooker or darts if they've got it at the bar. You can just talk to people. Just chat about your day and your life. And when you consider again the rough hand that this country has had dealt to it, part of me thinks that that's incredible that that survived. I don't want to say that that's something that came out of it. I know it's not. I know that that is how the Zimbabwean people are at their core. That's not something that sort of hardship has put on them. It's who they are, and it's the fact that that survived all of this hardship, that despite the fact that the country can be challenging to live in, the people are always smiling. They always want to help each other. If you break down on a road here, every car that passes is going to slow down and ask if you're okay. Is someone coming? Can I help? Do you have water? Black, white, young, old. It does not matter. If you are here in Zimbabwe, you are family. I cannot describe how that feels to sit in the center of. It's humbling. It's humbling, it's moving, it's incredible. And on that delightful note, I think that wraps up this video, the 5 things I love most about this incredible country. Zimbabwe truly is special. If you ever get the opportunity to visit it, do so. This is not the kind of place that you just want to put on a back burner. Zimbabwe has so much that you would just want to see in general, so much you would want to experience in general. But actually being here, there is so much more than this place looks like on paper. If you look at what is written, if you look at blogs like this, it just paints this picture of Zimbabwe. But once you're in that picture, there's something really magical about this place. If this is a country you visited, I would love to know your thoughts and opinions. If you are from Zimbabwe and watching this channel, first of all, hello. I'm loving how many people I've connected with already in the US, in South Africa, in the UK, who are from Zimbabwe and, you know, have left this place. The diaspora for this country is massive. So welcome to my channel. Have a conversation with me in the comment section down below. I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to know what you want me to cover, where you want me to go, what you want me to show you here on this channel. And stick right here. Hit like, subscribe for more. Thank you for your support, folks. Happy sailing, and see you all next time.